I'm the granddaughter of an immigrant, but this isn't a story about immigration. It's a story about America, about its promise, its contradictions, and about one man's quiet journey through both. My grandfather, Guermencindo Blanco, came to America from the impoverished region of Galicia, Spain, in the early 1900s as a teenager, drawn by the promise of the American dream. He believed there was something here for him, a land of opportunity and promise. And yet, during that same time, lynchings in the South were at an all-time high. Jim Crow laws were firmly entrenched. The Ku Klux Klan was thriving, and women yet did not have the right to vote. We're a nation of stark contrast. We were a nation of stark contrast then, and we remain one today. The preamble of the U.S. Constitution calls us to create a more perfect union. The key word there for me is more. Perfection isn't a destination, it's a direction. It's something we strive for, not something we claim we have fully achieved. I imagine my grandfather stepping off that ship, eventually making his way to Birmingham, Alabama. He started a knife sharpening business out of the back of his truck, rolling through the neighborhoods, serving the rich, the poor, the black and white alike. And I wonder what went through his mind when he saw the signs that said whites only over restaurant doors, water fountains, and toilets. What did he make of the contradiction between the promise of the America and the reality on the ground? And still he made a life. He and my Italian grandmother, Mary Locascio, raised two sons who became the first two in our family to graduate from college, men who carried a strong sense of justice and service into their communities. One of those men was my dad, Joe Blanco, who taught us to always ask, how will this decision affect the least of us? It's still a question that guides me today. As I, like so many others, have watched the pain and the division of the recent years unfold, it's clear we are still far from that more perfect union. Some days it feels like we're further apart than ever. But history reminds me, we've been here before, and we've risen before. Even in our darkest hours, we found a way to reach for something better. That's the hope I hold today, that within our pain, in our messiness, and yes, even in our division, the promise still lives. My grandfather sharpening knives across Birmingham just didn't represent the American dream. He embodied its complexity. He was part of the light and the shadow, the grit and the grace. He didn't wait for perfection. He contributed to it. So yeah, I may be a bit of a Pollyanna, and I'm okay with that, because for me, it's not about pretending things are perfect. It's about choosing where to place my attention, my energy, and my love. This, my friends, is where my independence and interdependence lies. I can witness pain and stand for love. I can see division and seek unity. I can acknowledge where we fall short and believe our potential, both individually and as a nation. Today, I celebrate my grandfather's courage. I celebrate the spirit of our country, and I recommit to listening to my own guidance, choosing to be a force for more perfect union within myself and within others.
Are you spiritual but not religious? Are you looking for more meaning in your life? Are you ready to create the life you know you deserve?
We can't wait to meet you.
Unity of Tucson, Sundays at 9:15 a.m.
There are some who might look at this song and say on some level it's perhaps a song of resignation. You know, oh, we're just going to let it be, right? But that is not what this song is about at all. I mean, obviously. I say obviously. I don't know. Is it obvious to you? It's not a song of resignation, but it is a song about grace. It's a song about surrender. And we teach the faculty of an idea of surrender. We teach the faculty of release. It's one of the 12 powers as articulated by one of the co-founders of the Unity movement, Charles Fillmore. Release, elimination, letting go allowing grace, allowing the surrender, releasing an adherence to past ideas that may be still prevalent in our minds, releasing limited ideas for what is possible as we move forward, releasing anger, releasing resentment, releasing fear, and allowing ourselves to, for me, if you decide to be on this journey with me, I welcome it, but for me, surrendering to infinite wisdom and allowing infinite wisdom to point the direction on the path and trust and know that this wisdom is inherent right in our heart space. That could be, we could take it as a mantra to say, let us speak words of wisdom, let it be. Rooted in the idea that it is a surrender to wisdom flowing. If you're feeling confusion, if you're feeling frustration, if you're feeling the energy of conflict, and I think there are many of us who are feeling the energy of conflict right now. It is inescapable on some level, right? It's all around us right now. Is it required to be a part of our experience? Absolutely not. But if you're feeling it, here's the thing to know. You have the capacity to address your own relationship to that conflict in energy and allow yourself to simply let it be. And it can be as simple as the activity of taking a breath. Let's take a breath. That's how simple it is. I think we complicate this spiritual stuff a lot. To become a licensed Unity teacher or a minister, you have to go through 18,000 classes, and you have to go into seminary, and it's just years and years and years of study and training and everything. And there's value in that to be able to have the capacity to be able to do what we do, which I will tell you, it's not easy. It's not. I'm not gonna lie about that. Being a minister is not easy. But if we can all settle ourselves into the frame of mind that it may just be the capacity to take a breath in any given moment, to take that moment of allowing ourselves to experience absolute presence in the present moment, taking a breath right here and right now. We allow that inner shift, and it can change our lives. And it is an act of graceful surrender. And it is setting ourselves up to allow an idea to come into expression. Reverend May Rowland had this to offer at a point. She wrote this: meet in agreement with the idea you're proclaiming. Meet in agreement with the idea you are proclaiming. Meet in agreement, and the subconscious phase of mind picks it up and puts it into action. Oh, I love that, right? Letting go of the notion that we have to coerce or manipulate or force anything to happen. Our responsibility becomes allowing the mind and the heart to align, to meet in agreement with that idea that we proclaim. Today, for me, that idea may be infinite world peace. If my mind meets in agreement with that idea, if my heart meets in agreement with that idea, the subconscious phase of mind puts it into action. That's not a passive experience. It's not a passive experience. So what if the idea of letting it be is not passive? What if letting it be is a courageous act of trust? What if letting it be is a courageous act of conviction, of passion, of feeling, of unflinching faith? Allowing that faith to guide us through wisdom into the expression and experience of this thing called life, knowing that we are not subject to the circumstances out there. We are only subject to that subconscious phase of life that we are allowing our minds to agree with. We are a faith that is rooted in trust. The New Thought faith is a faith that is rooted in trust. We trust our connection not to a deity, but trusting our connection in the idea that we are the power and presence of the divine itself. And that is what the mystics of the world have all taught. They've all taught it. They've all said, if we truly understood the truth of our being, if we truly understood who we are in this thing called life, there would be no discord. There would be no discord, but that takes a consciousness of alignment. It takes a consciousness of unity, because the only thing that leads to discord in the experience of life is the belief that we are somehow separate. And so this month, as many months ago, like 8-9 months ago, that I decided on the monthly themes for this year, right? Because part of it is to get some of the materials together to submit the themes of the month to the prayer chaplains and the ministers to say, I would like you to write the affirmations for these ideas. And yes, I wrote the affirmation for this month. But mostly it's I almost said practitioners, because that was my other tradition. But the prayer chaplains and the ministers who have all contributed to inspiring us through their affirmative statements, rooted in the monthly themes. So this month's theme is interdependence. Interdependence. And there's a very deep distinction that is important to me in understanding the notion of interdependence. And it is that a recognition, it is this. It is a recognition that nothing exists in isolation. There are no ideas that exist in isolation. There are no individuals that exist in isolation. There is no meaning that exists in isolation. Interdependence is a reminder that we are all part of a unified wholeness. We are not alone in the experience of life. We are not alone. And what a blessing that is, because I know that if I have a challenge in my life, I know that there's a community that I can turn to. There is support that I can seek out, because I'm not alone in this. I'm not. I went through a journey into this discovery, though. I went through the journey of, you ready for this? I went through the journey of codependence. Ooh. Some of you will know a little part of my history, and that is that it's weird to say this now, but at the turn of the century, even though if you saw my post this week, we are closer to the year 2050 than we are to the year 2020, which kind of makes my mind go. But in the journey of my life, in the year 2000, I was in a very toxic, abusive relationship. I was the abused, not the abuser. And the day that I realized I had to escape that relationship, I was living with this person. We had a huge knockdown, drag-out argument, fight. I'm a pretty reserved person, but don't cross me. But we had a huge fight, screaming, yelling, in an apartment building in Studio City, California. I'm sure all of our neighbors were like, here they go again. But I left, and I drove to a bookstore on Ventura Boulevard. And I was like, I don't know what to do, because I know there's that thing in me that does not want to go back to this experience. And so I've got to do something. And I walked into that bookstore, and, remember bookstores? I went to the self-help section. And I started looking at all these books, and I pulled out this one book, and I opened it up, and it said, The 10 Signs That You Are Codependent was like on the first page. And I started reading down the list, and I was like, yep. Oh, I see what's going on here. I have completely given away my own sense of authority to someone else. So I went through the journey of codependence and having to essentially recover in my own way through having a codependent mindset, trusting and knowing that I could let that go. And what I did is I did a big old swing to the other side of that. I'm going to be independent. Yes, I don't need anybody in my life. No way. And I'm going to be so freaking almost. They don't call us in New Thought irreverent reverends for nothing. I'm going to take a swing so far in the other direction that this independence means that I don't care. I don't care how it might harm other people for me to assert my independence. I had resistance to what I ultimately discovered, which was that it is affirming interconnectedness that was going to heal my heart. I didn't have to be wholly independent to escape the construct of codependence in my life. So I had a resistance to affirm that interconnectedness for the fear of the influence of others, that it was a position of weakness. And I had to let that go. To let go that my reliance on others was not a position of weakness. One of the discoveries that I made through this journey was this, and I've seen this, in various iterations, but I realized that life has no meaning. You're like, wait, what? Life has no meaning? Why are we here on a Sunday? Aren't you supposed to tell us the meaning of life? No. Life has no meaning. What life is our opportunity to create meaning. And so if you're willing to go out and create meaning in and as your life, what a blessing that is. Meaning emerges through our relationship to one another. It emerges through our relationship with others, our relationship to the planet, our relationship with and as spirit. And you ready? I'm going to talk about the Camino. Because there are a lot of people who talk about the three phases of the Camino de Santiago pilgrimage. And the first phase, they say it's the physical challenge, and the second phase is the mental challenge, and the third phase is the spiritual challenge. And what I realize is that, yes, that is on some level, I'll tell you, that first third, oh my gosh. If you remember, it was like during that first third that I had to stop for a full day because my ankles exploded. The physical challenge of that first third of the journey is really challenging. It is a challenge. But I also realized that the first third was really rooted in my developing relationships to others. It's where I actually met the most people. And that the second third was exploring my relationship to the planet. The second third of the Camino is through what they call the meseta, if you know, basically it's like the plains, right? Long, straight paths. There's no kind of deviation in elevation. It is just, you just walk and walk. And, you become really aware of your relationship to the planet. And then the final third is rooted in the relationship to and as spirit. That's how I understood it. So that relationship with others was the first third, the relationship to the planet was the second third, and the relationship to and as spirit became the final third of that journey over the course of 34 days of walking. And what was uncovered is that meaning in the experience and expression of life is not found in spite of others, but because of others, because of those relationships. Our words, our presence in this thing called life, our actions, they ripple, not just outward, but they ripple within. They ripple inward as well, too. Not just what is tangible, but what is intangible as well. We are infinite expressions of vibrational energy. And who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. The truth of you precedes you before you ever utter a word. And my experience of the truth of every single one of you is a beautiful experience and expression of love. I do want to give credit where credit is due. Who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying is actually a paraphrased Emerson quote. It is paraphrased, though. Look at the original quote. It's got a lot more words. Go figure with Emerson. Interdependence means this to me. It means trusting in ourselves and what we have to offer. Interdependence means that we are contributing to the greater whole, even if we don't see the outcome, or even if we may never see the outcome. back in 2021, remember that year? It was a strange year around here. I went to Hawaii on my annual journey that I used to take to Kauai. And we went to the McBride Gardens, which is on the south side of the island of Kauai. And there was this experience that there were many ministers in this group. And there was an experience that we all had, and we saw this rock, right? And we saw this rock, and growing out of this rock was a tree. And we all looked at it and we thought, well, isn't that just the great metaphor? And we all decided that that weekend we were going to give our talk, and we're going to call it The Tree and the Rock. And we all did that. Now, what the metaphor is that the tree did not concern itself with limitation. It just decided to grow. It hadn't been conditioned into thinking, well, if I don't have the right and proper soil, then I'm not going to be able to grow. It said, here is the seed, and this seed has the power to overcome the perception of obstacle, and it grows. It is shaped in some level by hardship. It just grows where it is planted. The seed did not know the impact it would have, because ultimately those roots found their way down in, and the rock began to split. Now, how many of us think, well, a rock is more solid than a tree? How could that possibly happen? It is the nature of things. We will grow where we are planted. And it is not requiring nourishment from outside the self. It is requiring an understanding of our own self-nourishment. We have impact in this thing called life. Rekindle the gift of God that is within you. The infinite has not given us a spirit of cowardice, but rather a spirit of power and of love and of self-discipline, Paul wrote in 2 Timothy. Rekindle the gift of God that is within you. Understand the truth of your being. You are the power and the presence of the divine, as is every single person you encounter. What could be more an expression of interdependence than that? If we are rooted in the reminder to remember who we are, and we act from that point of view, everything flows forth with grace, with ease, and we can surrender and let it be. I have a question related to this, though. Are we willing to speak up, to show up, and act from the point of view of our own spiritual authority in what we see as the discord of life? Are we willing to step forth and say, I am that I am, and I will not stand for the degradation of any other being in my sphere of influence? And your sphere of influence extends far beyond just where you stand. We are called to speak up. We are called to show up and act accordingly. That is the call of the mystics of the ages, to say, yes, step forth into the truth of your being. That is participation in interdependence. I am calling on each and every one of us to let love inspire our action in this world. And to let love be the grounding force, the grounding power of every prayer we utter, because prayer is meant to impel action in this thing called life. It must impel action in this thing called life. If we are not impelled into action in life, continue to pray until that impulse takes over and says, this is the path. And then surrender to the path and let it be, because you are magnificence unfolding. That's the truth of your being. There's a song that I had considered singing today. And you may know, if you saw the Friday email, I will tell you that the song was the song called For What It's Worth. And some people might have thought, well, he sang Let It Be. Why didn't he sing For What It's Worth? His talk title was For What It's Worth. And I'll tell you, it caused a lot of discussion in the office this week. When I said, at the beginning of the past week, I said, well, I'm singing the song For What It's Worth. I think the talk should be For What It's Worth. And then I thought, that song might be a little too controversial. And so I opted to let go of that song. Now, the chorus of that song is, you better stop, children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. It is a call for us to really start to pay attention to what's happening in life. But there's a lot of elements of that song I thought, it may just be a step too far for this community. I don't know. So maybe we have to put it back in. That song invites us to open our eyes, to see what is happening around us, and to allow ourselves through. Now, I'm gonna add this element to it. Through our own spiritual conviction, our own spiritual practice, to be guided into what our impulse of action is in life. We are the planters of the seeds, and we are called to offer our consciousness of love irrespective of whether we see the outcome. We all want instant gratification, don't we? Boy, if we could all just snap our fingers and have the discord be gone, wouldn't that be a nice thing? Snap your fingers and begin to adopt the frame of mind that discord is not necessary to your experience in life. And your subconscious action will take that and put it into effect in your experience. The value of our contribution, rooted in the consciousness of interdependence, is not always visible, but it is real. It is real. I have experienced this. Once I found the balance between that independence and codependence, I realized that interdependence has allowed me to find the balance in so many aspects of my life. For what it's worth doesn't mean we have to be resigned. To let it be does not mean we have to be resigned. It is a call to recognize what life is, our place in the interconnected whole, and to act accordingly from the consciousness of love, because that's what it's all about. So today, I invite you to consider where you might plant that seed of love, even if the result may go unseen by you. I invite you to consider how you can practice interdependence in your relationships, in your expressions and experience of service, in your expression and experience of self-love. How can interdependence show up? I invite you to consider in what way you are acting as a co-creator for the collective good. Because for what it's worth, it's always worth it. Peace and blessings. You are magnificent. I invite you into this home practice this week. If you're new to our community, I offer a home practice as an idea that we can put whatever the Sunday message is into practice, into actual effect in our lives. And so the practice this week is to do this. Please do this. Each day this week, choose one simple act of kindness. A text, a smile, a word of encouragement, and offer it without expectation of return. And as you do so, silently affirm to yourself, this seed matters. And trust that your small gesture contributes to the greater good, whether you see it blossom or not. That's the home practice this week.